Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over how I pre-grade my cards, what that looks like, and kind of, some tips to help you guys figure out how to send stuff to grading and what not to send. So here I've got a few cards with me right now that are all kind of not the best condition, but are still in decent condition that some people might actually consider sending them, and I would actually recommend against, sending certain ones. So we'll go over a few kind of different defects and issues that you can find in cards, and sometimes these will be just present as soon as you pull it, unfortunately. Sometimes, if someone just had it in their binder, it can induce wear, and then over time it'll get worse. And we'll kind of go over how you can spot those and yeah, what to kind of expect when you're grading your cards. So let's start with some of the more obvious flaws you can definitely find, and that is going to be centering. So here you can see I have a Charizard V-Star. Let me take it out of the sleeve really quick. Here it is out of the sleeve. So really amazing card. It looks great. Only problem is you can very obviously see the centering is awful. And as I mentioned before, the centering on these just tend to not be amazing. And you can even see it on the back too. So what you're looking for is this kind of bezel on the right and the left, top and bottom, and you want those to be as close to the same as they can be. I've actually been able to send cards that are like pretty badly centered on the back, but even though as long as they have decent front side centering, it's still fine, which is interesting. So definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, I would definitely avoid sending cards that are very clearly off center. Next, we have a Arceus V-Star. This is a Japanese card. This card is very well centered, looks amazing, one of my favorite cards. I just love the texture in Japanese as well. But if I turn it around, you can very clearly see that there is a huge dent in this bottom right corner. So this definitely would not get a 10. This would probably get an 8 or a 9. All the other corners look pretty decent. Sometimes you can get away with one bad corner, but when it is this bad, as you can see, that looks really awful, and it stands out even from a faraway distance. Yeah, the grader's definitely going to notice that, and so I would not recommend sending in this kind of card. Now let's get on to two more cards that I also wouldn't grade, but are going to be a little harder to tell. So we have this Latios from Surging Sparks, right? I've taken it out. You can kind of see there's like a little white edge there. And that corner looks okay. That corner has a really tiny white dot. Let's see if I can get my iPhone to focus here. And so you might be able to see there's like a tiny white dot. Here, I have this black thing I can use. So as you can see, there's a tiny white dot on this edge. If you're having trouble spotting white dots, you can definitely use a black surface like this. As you can see, white. And so when you see eBay listings for cards, they'll actually put them against a white surface, which makes it a lot harder to see any kind of imperfections. So those are the things you want to be looking for. Personally, you could still send this. You might get a 10. 2 white dots is not the worst. However, for me, I am pretty cautious when I send cards out. I try not to like send cards that I think are gambles. And if I do, it is usually because I got a deal on that card or I pulled it myself, so I don't necessarily care too much. And yeah, let's go over another card that kind of has a similar feature. So here's another card I wouldn't recommend sending. The front looks amazing. Good centering all around. Nothing wrong there. But if we flip it to the back, check the corners, you can see there's a pretty big white dot there. And actually, the back centering looks to be a little bit off. Now, you can get away with centering like this. I've seen cards like this get 10s before, but PSA does seem to be increasing their standards recently, so this would definitely not 10 in like Tag or Beckett. A little tiny white dot there, then kind of a bigger white dot there. So I would not be sending this one in because I see those imperfections, and ideally you want to be sending in cards that you know are 100% going to get 10s. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go over a few mix of cards, and I'm going to tell you whether or not I would send them into a 10. And, you know, before that, I'll give you guys a chance to guess. So it's going to be kind of like a fun game for us to kind of play together. We can see what we would and wouldn't send. Here's a card. Let me know if you guys would send this in or not. This is the Japanese Espeon from Terastal Festival. Absolutely beautiful Espeon. Just love the texturing on this guy. So here is the front. Let's go over the back. Back looks like, and then I'll take this. You guys can look at the corners. That corner. That corner. All right. So ultimately, I would send this in. I think this has really, really clean corners. The centering looks really good. And Japanese tends to get 10s very, very easily. And so for that reason, I think actually if you have some Japanese cards that look like they're in pretty decent condition, go ahead and send them. More often than not, they're gonna fly by PSA and get a 10 just because Japanese print quality is really, really good. Unless there's like some really obvious defects, there's no reason to avoid Japanese cards. They tend to be some of the best for grading just because they're so easy to predict. Let's move on to another card. A Pregrading SIR from base set. Okay, that's what it looks like on the front. Let's go over the back. Here's the back. Go over the corners. Right? Now, what would you guys do with this? Me personally, I would not send this in. The centering is pretty atrocious. As you can see, it has a really, really thick top compared to the bottom. Not as visible on the front, so you might be able to get a 10 with this. I didn't see too many like white dots. Yeah, I didn't see any white dots on any of the corners, so it's actually pretty clean in terms of condition, but the centering is so bad, I could see them giving this a 9. Here's the next card, Articuno from Journey Together. One of the most underrated illustration rares in my opinion. Very, very nice. I love the background on this. Get the back. So this one is interesting because it is very clean. It has very good centering, no really visible wear except for, if you guys noticed, the 2 white dots, one right there and one right there at the top 2 corners. And oftentimes that can be enough to dock you down to a 9, unfortunately. Personally, you could still send this in and I think you would be able to get a 10 in my opinion. However, I would not send this because again, I'm a pretty cautious person when it comes to grading. And so part of this is just kind of like send what you feel comfortable with. When you're looking for cards out in the wild, try and look for the most quality condition you can find just so you are reducing your risk as much as possible. There's no reason to take unnecessary risk when it comes to grading cards because you're paying a lot to get them graded. And I also wouldn't really recommend you guys grade cards that are just not worth grading and don't have a huge upside, right? So that you are kind of maximizing the time you're spending buying cards and then selling them. Obviously, the bigger submissions you do, the better. Here's the next one, Deoxys V-Star. Really, really cool card. I pulled this myself from Crown Zenith. Here's the front, here's the back, corners. So corners on this look pretty good. No real issues with that. My only problem would be the centering. You can pretty clearly see like just how off-center it is. And this is something that, honestly, centering is something that took me a while to understand. But now that I know what to look for is so obvious, let me know guys down in the comments. Is centering something you guys understand after watching this video? Like you can very clearly see the top and like the right side. There's some clear centering issues, right? And even on the front edge of the card, you can even notice this, how like the top bezel is thinner than the bottom one. The left one is more than the right. So you can kind of clearly see the bad centering there. I don't think this would 10, so I would not be sending it in. And for singles like this that you don't think will get 10s, my best recommendation is just to sell them if you don't like them, or just keep them. No harm in keeping singles that you like, but are not the best quality, even if they're even if they're a little off center. It's not the worst sometimes. Here is another card to check out. So here's the front. We have a Japanese Giratina V-Star, Crown Zenith, or whatever the Japanese equivalent is. Here's the back. Take a look at the corners. Right? This one, I would definitely send in. Looks super clean. It's a little right heavy and top heavy in terms of the border, but not so much. So you could definitely tell, there's definitely an argument to be made that this would give it a 9, but I think the grader would have to be really pissed off that day to give this a 9. I think this is a pretty good card, all things considered. Yes, again, it is a little right heavy, but with Japanese cards, they tend to be really chill with the grading. Centering is, yeah, as you can see, it is a little bit off for sure. So this one I could see them giving a 9 or a 10, but I would send this in. I think it's so, like, the back is so clean, there's no obvious defects, and the centering just being a tiny bit off, to me, is probably enough. Now, I know PSA technically has like a 45, right, limit? Or is it 40, 60? Or 45, 55? I don't know. I'll put up on the screen what they change it to, but you can't, there are some apps you can use that will kind of tell you like what your split is for your card and what the edges look like, just so you can make sure you're only sending in really well-centered cards and everything looks good in that sense. Move on to our next card. Salamence EX from Journey Together, or Battle Partners in Japanese. Beautiful Salamence card. I love this guy. Let's check out the back. Okay. Bam. Bam. Now, personally, I would definitely send this boy in. He's looking really nice. Really good centering. Corners look really good. No reason. There is a bit of a bend, as you can see. That's just from sitting the top loader, I think. But that doesn't really mind. You can have a little bit of bend and you'll be okay. If you're really worried about it, just put it in a sleeve and then put it between like 2 books and it'll flatten out. But bends usually don't really matter. So yeah, I would send that Salamence in. Alright, now let's kind of go over some cards I've actually sent in for submission and what to look out for. So we'll start with a 10. This was my childhood Latios, sorry, that I had since I was a kid, 2015, as you can see. Got this from a Japanese pack. Very cool. Got it from a local card shop. As you can see, Japanese tend to grade very well. Let's get this back. Corners looking really solid. Nothing wrong. The glare is kind of bad. Sorry about that, but you can pretty easily tell that this was in really good quality. Centering looks decent. No issues I see there immediately. Next we have PSA 9, Obsidian Flames Gita. Centering looks pretty decent. As you can see, it's a little right heavy, I think, but not the worst. The real issue is with some of these corners. It's kind of hard to tell, but there is a little bit of whitening there. There's a little bit of whitening. That one's a little easier to see. So yeah, tiny bits of whitening can definitely drop your grade down a bit, but I've also seen tiny bits of whitening get 10s. As of today, I know PSA is a lot stricter with their standards, so I would recommend if you see a lot of those whitenings, just avoid sending it in. Here is a Koraidon Pokemon Center stamped promo. It's got an 8. Centering on the front looks pretty good, but again, these PC promos are hard to grade because oftentimes the corners just get absolutely. This one is pretty bad on this corner. I think this deserved to get a 9 at least. Surprised I got an 8, but yeah, the corners, they'll do you dirty. So yeah, that's an 8. And then if you're thinking of sending vintage in, that's kind of a more interesting thing. A lot of the tips I'm talking about right now are for modern. Vintage is a whole different ball game, and it really depends on what the card is. For example, I sent in a unlimited Mewtwo, and I thought because it was vintage, if I hit even a 7 or 8, I would have made my money. But it hit a 5, and pretty obvious when you start looking at the condition, right? A lot of white there, really bad chipping on the corners, just really bad overall. And it's not really worth it to send cards like this unless they're like gold stars or extremely coveted, very rare cards. Unfortunately, a lot of the holos from WotC era are not as rare as people think, and unless it's like a base set Charizard, there's just no reason to really send it into PSA. But again, it depends. It depends on what you want to grade for as well. This is Charmander, first edition Shadowless. I had this in my collection for the longest time. Again, really bad whitening. This got a 4. So again, the corners really do matter, guys. And yeah, that kind of just, I hope that explains what grading is like, what to look out for grading. And let me know what kind of videos you guys want to see in the future, if you guys want to see more grading stuff. I sent out a big submission to PSA recently, so hoping I get that back soon. We could do a big PSA reveal. I think that'd be fun. But other than that, let me know what you guys want to see next. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, and thanks so much for watching.